Well, welcome everyone to the Deeper Insights Tech Canada webinar series. My name is Ruth Ann, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's presentation and actually for all of the webinars. So I'm glad that you're joining us today. I would like to say that we've got an interesting lineup coming up for the Thursdays through July. Today, as you know, our speaker is going to be Bahaa Moukadam, and he's going to be talking about your team and taking a deeper dive into the people and the personalities on your team. Additionally, next week we have Warren Barry, who is one of our Canadian tech speakers. He's going to be talking a little bit more on about the idea of a team as well, but from a slightly different focus. So we have two back-to-back examinations of your team. And then coming up on the 23rd, not on your screen right now, but coming up on the 23rd, we are going to have Neil Smith. Neil Smith is one of the top innovators in agriculture, and I am going to emphasize the word culture. He's an international speaker talking about all of the new methodologies, technologies, ways to market. And so if you're looking at some interesting perspective on what you think is an old business of agriculture, take a look and please join us and listen in. And then at the end of the month, we're going to be bringing back Spencer Shainin. Spencer Shainin is a UBC professor of accounting, and he does a very good and very, very clear deep dive on how to make sure that your financial books and all of your business information on a financial front is in line. So please, I recommend that you join us on the 30th for that. For today's presentation, we would encourage you to type in your questions and comments into the question box so that you can interact with our speaker today. And our speaker is a former Silicon Valley CEO. He has an extensive track record of success in hyper growth. And when I say hyper growth, I'm not going to go into the numbers here, but they're amazing. He's done turnarounds in international businesses, channel development, innovative product creation, marketing, mergers and acquisitions, strategic partnership, and organizational development. He has led 3 successful turnarounds as a CEO in the Silicon Valley area. He is also a certified scaling up and EXO coach. He has contributed to Vern Harnish's best-selling book, Scaling Up 2.0, and I know that many of you have already read that. Bahaa is inspired by supporting business leaders to gain life and balance with time while reducing their anxiety and escaping the business trap. So without further ado, and if I missed anything, Bahaa, I apologize. I'm going to turn it over to you to fill in any of the gaps. Welcome.
Thank you, Ruth, and looking forward to the presentation. Let's dive right in. This is about a key question that a lot of us are probably afraid to ask somewhat. Would you enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team? It's a deep question that's intentionally, hopefully will have you pause and think a little bit. And then what we're going to go through today is really when the answer is in many cases or most cases is no. More importantly, what do you do about it? But to get going, I want to present quickly a framework for sustainable success, because I think our goal in any business or in life is to see if we can have sustainable success over the long term versus having success for 2 or 3 years and then leveling off or declining. And basically the framework has to be built on a rock solid foundation. The 2 most important words in business, in my opinion, and probably in life, are relationships and results. And the reason this is really kind of important in a way, because most of us tend to be on either side of the spectrum, so to speak. So some leaders are very strong and are result driven, driving the metrics, the milestone, the goals, which is great. But if it's done at the expense of building good relationship, it would not be sustainable success. And on the other end of the spectrum, some leaders are more focused on relationship and running the business like a country club, making sure everybody is happy without paying attention or enough attention to results. And that could work well for a while, but it's not sustainable. So that the kind of opportunity here is to be aware that a combination is needed of focusing on both results and building good relationships. And as second piece of the framework, we call it the 4 decisions, in which with each decision, there's a key question. So there's a people, decision, strategy, execution, and cash. And again, you got to pay attention to all those different dimensions to build a sustainable, successful business. Today, I'm going to give you a quick quick snapshot of strategy, execution, cash, but do a deeper dive on this whole notion of people and would you hire everybody and how would you think about the people decision more deeply. There is a powerful but very simple tool I encourage all the businesses I work with to use, and it's called the 4 W's. I call it the 4W. It's simple but so powerful. And simply, it's a simple form that has 4 columns. 4W are what, why, when, and who. I'm sure you could all relate to the idea of many of us sometimes having meetings or discussions or decisions, and people walking out and having totally different views on what happened or what was decided or who is supposed to do what. So this simple tool is really an effective way to capture and document, what is the objective, what is the objective or priority we want to do, why is the key result, why is this important, what is the outcome we expect out of that priority or objective, when is an indication of when is it due, and who is a one person accountable for making it happen. There's always a team behind anything meaningful, but you always have one quarterback, to use a football analogy, on the field. So you always want one person accountable for driving each of those objectives. So I encourage you to, maybe as we go through this presentation, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, kind of create the version of this pretty simply. And as you see nuggets or ideas or things that resonate with you, just write those down in this format real quick, so you could take some of those ideas and activate those in your business. Ruth Ann did a great job covering my background, so I'll skip very quickly over this. I've led 3 successful turnarounds. To use another sport analogy, somebody told me if you were a baseball player, you would be rated at 1.0. I didn't know what that means because I'm not a baseball fan, but it's pretty cool. It's just tough to turn around businesses. But it's a lot more fun to also grow businesses, and those are some of the things I've led or was heavily involved in, from 0 to 40 million in 5 years. The key is using breakthrough innovation. The way I define breakthrough innovation is when you create a product or a service or a solution and you first introduce it to the market. People say, hey, what is this? We didn't ask for this. We don't need it. What is it? And then 6 months later, they say, how did we ever live without this product or service? So that's the simple definition, in my opinion, of a breakthrough innovation. And then platform leverage is a key concept, of course, to take a big investment in a product and making small changes or adding some application to it to open up a new adjacent market to it. Blue ocean strategy is the idea, as a lot of you know, I'm sure, is to go into the white space where your competition is not looking or not paying attention, and identifying an opportunity and going for it. I've done business. I was fortunate, done business in 25 countries around the world. I've led every single function in an organization, scaling up, and EXO is exponential organization. It's another complementary concept to scaling up, where, and now we've developed a new methodology called Purpose Launchpad to help companies that are starting out to be exponential from day one. And there's a whole framework we guide companies through. At heart, I'm an engineer. For 100 years ago, I have a bachelor and master degree in electrical engineering. Let's dive in. Let's talk a little bit about strategy. And with each of those 4 decisions, there's a key question. The question on strategy: will anyone other than your own employee care if your business ceased to exist tomorrow, right? Or would they just simply go to the competition, right? And if the answer is like no, nobody would care, they go to the competition, you have a lot of work to do on a strategy level, which lead you to the decision. The strategy decision is to become irreplaceable in the minds of your customer, right? Irreplaceable. That's a great position to be in, again, for sustained success. And I just want to share one thought on strategy is that it's getting more and more traction. I fully believed in it is your purpose, your core purpose or massive transformative purpose as a company is the core of your strategy. And there's a lot of empirical study now that purpose first companies outperform from a financial point of view companies that don't have a sense of purpose. A great example that a lot of us could relate to probably right now is Tesla. It's not really a car company, but it's viewed as a car company, have a purpose of transitioning transportation into renewable energy. In the last couple of days, Tesla valuation is more than Toyota now and General Motors combined, and it's only like an 18-year-old company. So that's an example where purpose-driven companies can, and in many cases, become a lot more profitable and valuables that companies just are chasing profit or growth. Okay, so let's dive into the execution, key question and decision. The question you want to ask here is, how many months in a row have you reached or exceeded your business goals? And when we ask that question, in some cases people don't know what their goals are really on a monthly basis, or they haven't checked on it, so it's really important kind of to embrace this idea of a dashboard and have an ongoing visibility and review of your business goals, at least on a monthly basis. Many people do this on a quarterly basis or annual basis, and they don't connect it to the goal they establish in the beginning of the period. And the decision that flows out of this is to meet or exceed your business goal every single month and doing what it takes to make it happen. And, some of the simple tool in terms of execution, it comes down, like if you look at companies that execute well and consistently, on a consistent basis, meet or exceed their goal, it comes down to really 3 key execution disciplines that I'm going to cover briefly here. So the execution disciplines are first, priorities, is the ability to prioritize, and if you have like 15 priorities, this sounds harder than it looks on the surface, because we tend to want to do a lot of things, accomplish a lot of things, and we tend to have too many priorities. That's a pretty common practice. And really the discipline here is it's okay to start brainstorming and have 15 different things on your priority list, but you got to really narrow it down to 3 to 5 priorities is what we recommend per year. Ideally a single big priorities per quarter to create focus and alignment throughout the whole organization. So you got to become a lot better at prioritizing. The second execution discipline is metrics for visibility and improvement. You got to measure things. Whatever you measure actually improve. And if you measure it and report on the result on a regular basis, it'll improve faster. So measuring and reporting on a regular basis, having dashboards. Some metrics actually you want to measure daily or weekly. I encourage people to have more frequent measurement. And this is really not just financial measurement. You got to have metrics around operational, customer, and employee in addition to financial metrics. And the third execution discipline, of course, is having an effective communication flow of information, having an effective meeting rhythm on a regular basis to create engagement and productivity. I want to pause here for a second, see if there are any questions or comments coming in or any observation, just to kind of like throughout the hour, maybe we'll entertain some questions, or if there are some good comments coming from people, it's good to put some of those on the table.
So we don't have any that have come in yet, but again, thanks for the encouragement. And we've got several people online that could lean into this a little bit. So please put your comments and your questions in as we go along. It will help guide the discussion.
Yeah, if an idea resonates with you, or you have an additional idea that contribute to the conversation, or if you have a questions, absolutely jump in. It'll make it a lot more interesting. And the third decision is cash. And the key question in cash is, are you pushing and pulling on the right profit levers? Right. And again, when we ask that questions, in many cases, not the, CFOs know what the lever are typically, hopefully, but many people on a management team wouldn't necessarily know what those profit levers are in the first place and how they could influence them. And the key decision here is the cash decision is to embrace 10% as the new break even. As we are seeing now with a big disruption with COVID and all the havoc it's creating on a lot of businesses around the world, is really you want to build a strong cash position in terms of balance sheet. You want to continue to increase your profitability. Think about 10% as a new break even to give you that cushion to be able to absorb any decline or any bumps in the road that's inevitably will happen as you manage your business. So companies that have 10+% profit are doing a lot better, especially if they also have very strong balance sheet to absorb what we're going through right now. And then in terms of what are those lever, real quickly, there's a powerful tool we used. It's called the Power of One. And the idea here is, some of the key levers here are price increases, volume or revenue increase, direct cost reduction, overhead reduction, reduction in receivable days. Those last three impact your cash flow, not necessarily your profitability, your operating income. Reduction in work in progress days, and then increase in payable days. Those last three will have impact on cash flow. The first four will have an impact on both cash flow and profitability. In this example here, this company is about a $22 million a year company. And when we use this tool, and if they were able to increase their price by 1%, while everything else staying the same, their profit will increase by about $225,000 per year. Whereby, a lot of us are focused on revenue increase, which is important, but 1% increase in revenue will only create 43,000 or 44,000 of operating profit. So pricing power is so critical, because in most cases, a price increase where everything else stays the same will directly drop to the bottom line. And of course, direct cost reduction is helpful in profitability, overhead. Each business model, the way to use this tool, we load financials for the last 2 or 3 years, actuals, and then you could manipulate those percentages or days. You could say, hey, what if we increase our price by 5%? What if revenue went up by 20%? Or in the last few months, we've been using this tool to model to model revenue decreases by saying, hey, what if our revenue go down by 30%? And what do we need to do on the other levers potentially to continue to be break even or reduce our losses or continue to be profitable? So this is pretty effective tool. Now, the pushback I get when I talk about pricing, in some cases, people say, well, isn't there a relationship between price increase and volume? Like if we increase the price, wouldn't our revenue go down? And the reality is, in few cases, that's very true, but in many cases, many businesses I work with, they tend to underprice unintentionally their services or product. And the idea of pushing your prices based on value, there's a whole discussion around pricing and how to do it effectively to maximize profitability. But I would venture to say 80 to 90% of businesses probably are underpricing today. And actually, there are studies depending what industry, what product, what service you have. There's an empirical data. There are cases where you increase your price by 20, 30%. And actually your volume, the number of things, the number of widgets you sell will also go up, which would be a double whammy. Again, not always. In some industry, some product, if you increase the price, actually it'll make the product appear more attractive and it'll attract more attention to it and more people will start buying it. Okay, sounds good. Let's continue now. The people key question. Would you enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team? We're going to spend a lot of time on a people question and decision. And this is really different question from saying, hey, is everybody doing okay? Is everybody performing okay? The question is deeper. Would you which people on your team, if they came to you, that's another way to think about it, and say, hey, I'm sorry, I found another job, I'm going to be leaving. Would you totally freak out and say, no, what do I do to keep you? That's kind of another way to look at this: enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team. Is that true for everyone on your team? If everybody came to you one by one saying, I'm resigning, would you want to keep all of them or rehire them? Or would you in some cases say, oh, I'm glad you resigned and I don't have to do anything? So that's really the deep question. And really the people decision that flows out of this question is to do whatever is necessary to have the best team of people in your company. And that's there's a whole process, of course, that we're going to dive into a little bit about how do you move toward having the best team of people in your company, which is ultimately fundamental to all the other decisions. If you want to execute better, you need good people. If you want to develop a good strategy, you need good people. If you want to increase profitability and productivity and predictability, you need the best team of people in your company. So your influence as leaders, we cast a big shadow that we don't always are aware of, but we have a responsibility and even an obligation to really make a positive impact on others within our company, on customers, on partners, on everybody kind of in our ecosystem. And in these tough times, the last few months is like we gotta stay calm, clear-headed. We gotta, face the current facts. And I see the company I work with, there's extreme examples, right? There are some businesses. There's one company I was working with. They went from 14 million a month revenue run rate to 0 in March after COVID hit. They happen to be in the event business, right? Ticketing for events. They were growing at about 80% a year. And then when event canceled, their revenue went to 0. So that's one extreme. On another extreme is some companies are doing a lot better because of COVID, an industry where they're part of the supply chain and e-commerce that's really picking up steam even faster than before. So again, we got to face the current fact, whether we're doing better or worse, and there's of course everything in between. And even if we're struggling, I believe in doubling down on our long-term ambition and recognizing this challenge, even though it's deep for many businesses, it's probably temporary. And even if it's not, we got to figure out a way to augment or pivot or change our business model and double down on our long-term ambition. And it's really about modeling 3 scenario: bad, worse, and worst, in terms of revenue, and create the system and action plan to be able to handle those scenarios. And you got to have a bias for action. Bias for action is critical. This is it's all about teamwork, right? And I doesn't have a place, but you could find it if you look hard enough. Traditional org chart look like this. A lot of you are familiar with this, but the reality in almost every business is very different, especially more recently. This used to be good 20, 30 years ago. Now it's more like this, a real org chart. I'll let you kind of look at it a little bit. So of course, there's a lot of things happening when you have people and interaction and different things. A lot of fun stuff could happen in the background. Okay, so let's dive back into the idea of getting the right people on the bus, right? The right people on the bus is critical. And the key question here is everybody in the right seat, doing the right things, right? Do we have the right people in the right seats doing the right thing is what we want to get to, as Jim Collins shared with us. Okay, so the key question is, would you enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team? Regardless of the answer, like, let's dive into tools. One key tool that you could use to start moving toward building the best team in your company. And really, you got to win through talent, and you got to develop, if you don't have it already, a whole talent management system from A to Z, right? So it's about having an ongoing assessment of your current people that are already on the bus. You got to have, as you're growing and adding people, you got to have an effective way to acquire new talent by sourcing the right talent, being effective at interviewing and selection, and then selling when you find an A player to join you, and then onboarding after they join. You got to have an effective system of onboarding, development, continue ongoing development and learning, and then of course retention to keep your strong players on the team. We're gonna talk in detail about assessment, right? Assessment is really critical in this whole equation. But in terms of a couple comments on the other aspect is acquisition is really about sourcing, selection, having a system. Usually what people tend to do is interviewing, and basing the hiring decision whether somebody is like us, have similar kind of way, and whether we like a person, right? And the success rate in hiring, unfortunately, is less than 50% across all industry. And you want to raise this percentage to 90% plus. The methodology we use is called WHO, based on the book by Smart. It's the A method for hiring. It goes through a detailed process of sourcing, interviewing better, onboarding, and then it's a good way, good system I recommend for implementing in your company. Development and learning, yes.
I'm just thinking this. You may be going to answer this, but Chris has just chimed in, and he wants to know How does this change for a startup when you don't have an asset market, or when you are building a market and you don't have proper processes for onboarding yet?
Uh, I think for a startup, the best way to onboard and acquire, and it goes a little bit back about what I said about strategy, right? Strategy, if you have a core purpose, which means you're building a startup typically to solve a big problem in the world or in your industry, or to make a big impact, right? If you have this purpose well defined, then actually it becomes easier to attract A players, because now a lot of people want to join a company not simply just to make a salary, but to make an impact. And businesses that have a core purpose well defined, whether it's solving a big problem or making a big positive impact on the world, attracts much better talent faster. And the part of onboarding becomes simple, is really about having a deep discussion about the purpose and why it matters to the founder. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the same process for medium or large company, but all of these onboarding and acquiring talent, if it revolve around a clear purpose, it makes everything much better.
That makes
And
good sense. Yep.
yeah, and in reality, this whole purpose idea goes even beyond this. Companies that have a purpose, of course, attract customers a lot faster and better. Absolutely. Does that answer the question?
I'll have Chris chime in. Yes, he says yes, thanks very much. And we'll probably come back to this maybe, but Tara had asked a question. When you were talking about industry research on price increases, maybe we can come back to that a little bit later. She wants to know where she might find some of that research.
Okay, excellent. Let me, just in case we don't get back to it, let me give you a good resource. There's a great book about pricing I recommend that has a lot of this information, much deeper discussion about pricing, how to do it, impact on profitability. It's called Confession of the Pricing Man. And I don't remember the author, but the name, but it's called Confession of a Pricing Man. It's a German guy. He was a speaker at one of our conferences. I highly recommend that book. But there are, again, cases, I mean, again, depend on your industry. There are cases where you increase your price, also your volume goes up because you increased your price, which is interesting. So this whole idea, they teach you in the MBA is, hey, there's a price demand relationship, and as the price go up, demand goes down. That may apply to sugar or oil or whatever, but it doesn't apply across the board. There are many cases where you increase the price and volume goes up, which is a double huge win.
And the author is Herman Simons. Thank you to Chris.
There you go. Yeah, that's it.
I'll send it out to everybody.
One of my weaknesses is I'm horrible at remembering names of anybody, even some friends. Sometimes I say, what's your name? So, but yeah, it's a very good book for that purpose. And then, on development, again, it's an area we often neglect, right? Often neglect. Developing internal talent is so critical. It used to be in the old days, good company have a target, like they had a metric around learning, and the way they did it is as a percent of payroll invested in learning and training. For example, some companies used to say, hey, we want to invest like 3% of our payroll cost incrementally for training as a training budget. So that was cool to put an emphasis on it. Today, I'm not sure that's as necessary, because now there's a lot of learning and development resources that's a lot less expensive. So I don't think it's necessarily about a budget anymore, but it is about the discipline of creating career tracks and learning and development for your employees, regardless if it costs little or a lot. And it costs a lot less now in many cases. And retention is about engagement. As you all probably know, like, people typically leave their manager and not their company. So it's the responsibility of the frontline managers and the executive to engage and remove barriers or remove I call it de-hassling. It's de-hassle the organization, but also take the best practice I recommend here, which is kind of related to the meeting rhythm, is to have one-on-one meetings, coaching meetings with everybody that works for you, one-on-one, at least monthly, if not. I used to do it weekly in a lot of my past weekly one-on-one meetings to really understand, get to know your employee better, get to know their career aspiration, and gives them a little bit of feedback. But it's really more those coaching one-on-one session is more about you as a manager listening 80% of the time, asking questions and not about you talking 80% of the time, which we tend to do. A lot of us tend to want to say things. And in a coaching conversation is really just asking simple questions. It's more about listening and being curious and deeply interested in what your employees and team want to go and how does they want to contribute, what ideas do they have about making the business or their own job better. So let's dive into the assessment tool. And this is a simple tool that, again, simple. I'm all for simple, just like the 4W, so simple, so powerful. Talent assessment, this is a very simple but very powerful tool. And it's 2x2. It have a results axis. This is an indication of somebody delivering on their KPIs, their milestones, their objective, how well are they doing in terms of actual results. And the vertical axis is as they go about doing their job, are they living up to the core values of the company, right? And you may say, well, some companies probably don't have core values yet, or they haven't defined them clearly or written them down. Like every company have core value, but in many cases they're not documented or shared or equally understood. So if you don't have that yet, think of this again, this vertical axis for now, but as relationship. If you don't have core value, or as people go about their business, do they have a positive influence on people around them? Do they build strong, effective relationships, right? So think about it in those terms if you don't have core values defined yet. But the way you would use this tool is you would, let's say you're managing 8 people. What you would do, you would just want to plot, think about Joe. Hey, Joe, how's Joe doing? Joe is consistently about 80% of time deliver results. And Joe, as he goes about his business, is very effective, collaborative, have a positive influence. He lives our core value. So you would put Joe name up here in that case. And the same thing, you may have some people that aren't producing result, but they're very collaborative. Maybe they go in this quadrant, and you would plot your whole team across this 2-dimension. And basically, the way I define this, A players are people that are in the upper right corner, right? Those are the people that if they come to you and they say, "Hey, boss, I'm leaving," you would totally freak out. You'd do anything to keep them. Ideally, you want more and more people in this quadrant up here. B players are people that collaborative, they live their core values, they have positive influence on others, but they're not delivering consistently on their result. They get some result, but they miss milestone. They're not hitting their KPIs yet. C players are people that are delivering result, but they're kind of disruptive. They take credit for others. They throw people under the bus, but they're delivering on their own personal result. They're driven, they're focused. And if you look at the results in relationships, they don't care about relationships. They only focus on their own results. And then D player are people that don't produce results, and everybody hates them in the company. So those are the column D player in red. So the idea is, so you plot this, you plot your team, you put their initials across this 2x2 matrix. And then the key is what do you do? Like this is the reason I call it assessment. It's not a judgment. So I don't want you yet to judge people based on where they are on this 2x2. Time for judgment
Question.
later. Yeah.
A question, just because as you're talking about this individuals, James's weight has the question is, how much weight do you put on a team or team results versus the individual, and how do you break that down with this type of model?
Yeah, exactly. So this model is really primarily focused on individual assessment. You could I guess take it and apply it to teams, but if you apply it to teams, it doesn't necessarily. So for example, you could have an A performing team, but they may still have a weak link in it, a weak person that the combination of the other 5 people are overcompensating for. So it'll hide that information if you apply it only to teams. So you definitely want to use this tool on an individual basis first, and then maybe later. I am going to talk on the next slide after we finish this about what are the two, based on a lot of research that Google did. What did they discover in terms of high performing teams versus average teams? So I'm going to cover this in a minute here. But this tool definitely should be used for individual. It could potentially be applied. Also, I haven't used it in the context of team, but I can't see why it couldn't also used for team. But you got to use it for individual, in my opinion, first as well. So, okay, so as you plot everybody on this chart, so the A players, hopefully you have few A players. You want to make sure, what you want to do is that you want to make sure to, number one, let them know, recognize them, they know that you appreciate them, and continue to challenge them. A player want to challenge, they want to keep learning, they want to contribute more, and you want to give them room to run. You want to continue to raise the bar on their performance and expectation, because that's what they expect from you as a leader. By their nature, they want to do more and contribute and not take credit. They usually do it in the context of how do they contribute and how do they make everybody, they're highly collaborative. How does they make everybody around them better as well?
And in the same light, Bahaa, a question came in, how does a leader affect that performance, and what is the role of the leader in putting somebody into that category? Because that could be somewhat dangerous just to label them there and leave them there.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So that's why I said this is an assessment and not a judgment. Let me kind of answer the question by adding to the reason you don't want to judge yet, because there are B player or D player and C player. First, you ask yourself, what am I doing? Maybe for B or D or even C player, you haven't clearly set expectation. You haven't told them what their metrics and goals and metrics are at all. Maybe you have put people in the wrong seat that doesn't play to their strengths. So this is an initial assessment. I love whoever said that. It's not a permanent, because A player under certain circumstances could slide back to be B player, C player could move up. So this is a dynamic, and you don't want to label people at all. It's just an initial assessment. So you as a manager and a leader proactively work it to change the dynamic and make it better. Absolutely. So your role, of course, like for B player, maybe, you hired somebody for values and they're performing, but you haven't cleared what is expected from them, what is their metrics, or maybe they're in the wrong seat on the bus. Their strengths, you put them in a job where it doesn't take advantage of their expertise, and maybe simply they need some training. If they need some training, and after they spent 3 months in the company, they move to become a player. But you as a leader, actually, you as a leader have a role to first look in the mirror number one. After you do this, look in the mirror first. Don't judge. Say, what could you do to make the situation better? So for B player, again, your role is proactively to give them the right training, guidance, clarify objectives and goal, to move them to A player. In some cases, put them in a different position where they could excel, because they have different capability, different strength, different interest. So maybe they're in the wrong seat, you put them in the right seat, they instantly become A players. Or, in some cases they're just lazy. You don't know, they love their values, they love everybody, they they have a positive influence, everybody likes to be around them, but like in terms of getting things done, they're just lazy. But again, your responsibility is to say, hey, I want to give that person a chance. I want to give them guidance, training, coaching, whatever they need, put them in a different role with the goal to move them to A players. For C players, the same thing. C players are performing, they're doing great jobs, they're delivering on their milestones and metrics, but they kind of have a negative influence on people around them. And again, here initially you want to go in acknowledging their contribution, but have a serious coaching conversation or conversations around how they could become even better, hold them accountable to the core values, highlighting the fact that they have they're probably well-intentioned people, but the impact is negative, and you got to highlight that and coach them to try to move them to become A players. And then D players, in most cases, gives them chance. Again, you do all the stuff we talked about, but in many cases, in my experience, D players, it's better to release them to the world to become successful in another organization. And even in this case, I really, again, D player, like everybody, you got to treat everybody with the highest level of respect. You got to treat them well. You truly got to, in the case of D players that don't improve, again, don't judge them as a person. Every person is the hero of their own journey. So treat them as individual with the highest level of respect, treat them well, but, again, release them so they could be successful in another organizations. They're not a good fit in your organization, but we're not judging them. That's my opinion. I don't judge people as individual, but I'm judging the fact that they don't fit in our organization, and you move them out. So this is a framework, kind of to summarize. You use this tool to plot people. Don't judge people, don't label them. It's an initial assessment. So you as a manager become proactive at proactively continuing to manage the team, right? Coaching, training, putting them in a different role, the one-on-one conversation I mentioned earlier, the one-on-one meetings are critical for making changes. In many cases, like an A player may dive back into, like usually into a B player. Maybe they're challenged. Maybe they have a personal situation happening that's distracting them, right? So again, you want to be aware and not be judgmental, but always coaching and making things better. So let me pause here a little bit, see if there's any additional comments, question people want to add to this. Are people aware of this tool? Have you used it? What's your experience? If there's any of that conversation, we could spend a couple minutes here if needed.
I'll wait for them to type in whether they've had experience with this tool, but you bring up a good point, and it's that analogy or metaphor of the plant that is not flourishing. By yelling at it, is it going to do any better? No, you need to change the conditions. If you've changed all of the conditions, then it probably needs to be repotted or replaced somewhere else.
Absolutely, yeah, I like that. Okay, well, let's
no questions. Carry on. We've got about 10 minutes left here.
Okay. So you and then what I encourage you to do, let's say you're a business owner or CEO, start first with assessing your own team, as you get comfortable with the tool, um, being highly sensitive to what not to do with this tool, because you could use it to dangerous effect. Don't label people, don't judge. It's not a permanent, it's an assessment point in time to make things better. That's the goal. And then once you're comfortable with it, then encourage your executive to roll it out to the next level, right? Cascade this tool, but do it first at the executive level. Get comfortable, make sure it's working for you, make sure you're not doing the do not, you're using it properly, then you could roll it throughout the company. I mentioned earlier, now let's go to the earlier question that came up, is there's this whole idea, okay, so now we're focusing on individual. We want everybody to reach their full potential, encourage them, train them, put them in the right seat, giving them guidance, de-hassling, removing barriers from empowering them to do the job, okay, on an individual level. Now, Google wanted to know is, what is the difference between high-performing teams and average teams or underperforming teams, right? And they did like a 3-year study within Google to kind of try to answer that question. And two of the interesting finding is things that are common thread to high-performance team. The first one is this whole idea of conversational turn-taking, right? And what that means, imagine by the way, the ideal team size also is about 4.7 people, right? And because we can't slice people, it's like 5 people, 4 to 5 people is an ideal team size, right? But conversational turn-taking, imagine you have 5 people in a team and they're meeting and having a discussion and they're driving a project. Conversational turn-taking is the idea of everybody having almost equal time. So if you have an hour meeting, everybody is gonna talk on average about 10 minutes or so, right? Or 12 minutes if you're better in algebra than I am. And the reason so they found this is common in high performing teams. And if you have a team of 5 people, again, what tend to happen in a lot of teams is you can have people that are overpowering. They kind of talk all the time. They dominate the conversation. And usually those people repeat what they say about 5 times, right? That's not an environment for a high performing team typically. People have different personalities. Some people are introverted, some people are extroverted. So you got to make an effort as a team to make sure that everybody have a chance to weigh in on the conversation. Because maybe an introvert or somebody that's a little bit shy, they may have the best ideas. And if you don't stop and say, hey, Jane, what do you think? Really want to know your opinion, and make sure everybody have almost equal time to weigh in and contribute on the conversation. And of course, if like somebody's sitting there and they have no contribution at all, or they're wondering why they're there, so that goes to that initial idea of when you form a team, make sure you form a team that's all needed and necessary to accomplish the project or the initiative or the priority that you task them to do. Okay, conversational turn taking. I'm sure we're all guilty. We all have we all have situations where we have dominating people. They like to talk all the time. They like to dominate. Usually there's one in every team, right? And we all know of people that are really smart, intelligent, quiet. They're like, and you want to be aware of that dynamic and counteract it by doing conversational turn taking as a discipline, as a practice. And the second one, so that's the first one. They found, wow, this is amazing. Second one is average social sensitivity, right? And what that really mean is you gotta have awareness. Every member of the team gotta be a little bit aware of the environment and not do things unnecessarily to just shut people down or be take issue disagreeing. You could disagree without being disagreeable. So you gotta be sensitive to the dynamic of the people in the team, and make sure, while vigorously you want to debate issues and defend your ideas, like focus on the issue and the topic, and don't take it into becoming disagreeable with the people. So average social sensitivity and conversational turn taking are two of the key findings that Google discovered that's common across high performing teams, which is, I don't know why it took them 3 years to figure that out, but I guess they do a lot of research. Any other comments or ideas or questions coming up now?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. One, when we talk about conversational turn taking, we had a speaker on not too long ago that said, you have people in your group, some of them are crock pots and some of them are microwaves. How do you give the crock pots a little bit of time in a situation like this? There are some tools that could be deployed to allow them the preparatory time to be able to percolate their ideas. And then the second question came in from Tara is like, are you saying they have average social sensitivity or above average? When we talk, it's a question about the average. So where does average fit?
I guess average come from is the fact that Google, as you know, it's full of super smart technical people, and they're usually way down on the social sensitivity, not to judge, not to make a general statement. That's true. Technical people in most cases, and all you need is to be average in that environment to create a high performing team, right? Because again, like, not to judge, but probably most people in Google have way less than average social sensitivity, and if you get it to average, that's good enough. So I hope that answers the question, right? You don't have to be, again, if you do conversational turn taking, okay, you have high talent anyway. You have a lot of A players that are really good at what was in their domain of what they do and their expertise, and all they have to get to average social sensitivity to. So the barrier, the bar is pretty low on that.
Yeah.
You got to be average.
Compared to a Steve Jobs or someone like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. We all know example of. Well, I mean, technical people like on the back to the ABCD player, like the good example for C players that produce results, but are not aware. They don't have they probably have negative impact on everybody else. Usually, as a job function, that tend to be either salespeople or CTOs or highly technical people, right? Usually they're very good at what they do as a discipline. Again, we're not judging them, but typically they don't have average social sensitivity. They only focus on being right rather than being effective, so to speak. And they tend to be condescending in a lot of cases. They're smarter than anybody else. Usually salespeople and technical people tend to fall more often in that category of a C player. And Google is full of mostly technical people, so that's why this average social is all you need to clear that hurdle.
I think we have that. We've got to thank you on that. All right, so we're looking at the last few minutes here.
Yeah, so that's really the whole presentation. I want to just open it up for Q&A right now. Any other question? Here's a way to reach me in the future if you have any additional questions or comment, but let's open it up now in the last 4 minutes for an open conversation.
I will let everyone know we're getting a few questions about the assessment template, Bahaa, and with your permission, we will be posting the recording on our Tech Canada website. But I would also like to say that perhaps you could send us a PDF that we could include of some of the tools. It doesn't need to be the whole PowerPoint, but maybe 1 or 2 of the tools that will be included with the recording. So
absolutely.
A question has come up about the crock pots. How do you do, what are some of the ways that you can give introverts a chance to give them that time in an open meeting like that? Any suggestions?
Well, Absolutely. I mean, usually you want to really coach if there's like a chair, somebody chairing the meeting. You want to focus on coaching them to really make sure that they, like for each conversation, to make sure they pause and go around the room and ask everybody. And even if somebody said like, some people say, well, I have nothing to say, I would pause and say, well, no, we want to hear like, what are your thoughts, right? So you want to give, it's not asking, hey, does anybody have anything else to say? It's more going one by one. Hey, Joe, what are your thoughts? Hey, Cheryl, what do you think about what we just talked about? Right? It's really explicitly going around one by one and giving them the opportunities, the space. Some people want to think. So pause. Hey, Jane, we're really interested in your opinion. And pause, gives a person space to answer. Another technique that works well, that hopefully a lot of people do anyway, is to make sure there is an agenda before the meeting, asking people to come prepare with their thoughts and analysis and gather information ahead of time. So they have more confidence when they're at the meeting. They have confidence, they have their notes, they have their prepared remarks maybe, or they've done their research about the topic. That gives them more confidence to kind of weigh in when you do the one by one. Let's go around the room and make sure everybody weighs in.
Those
So
are
those are a
excellent
couple of
suggestions.
really key ideas. And then the third technique, real quick, is when somebody weighs in, don't use the fire hose. Don't fire hose the idea. No matter there's no bad idea, just like absorb it, listen in. If you totally disagree or you think it's a crazy idea, ask, hey, why do you think that way? I want to know more, instead of saying, hey, this is a horrible idea. So again, this average social sensitivity kicks in at that point to say, initially you think it's a bad idea. Tell me more. Why did you come up with that idea? That's a lot better than saying, I think it's a stupid idea. So those three techniques are very helpful.
Good. I don't think we have time for the full answer on this question, but it's an excellent question that came in from Sue. And it's any ideas on how to screen during an interviewing process to determine an A player?
Yes, use the Who method. That's get the Who book by Jeffrey Smart. He goes in detail exactly what question to ask, how to go through the history of the person. There's 4 different interview and 4 different type of interviews at different stages. So that's the best resource I recommend for all the companies I work with to implement in their company. That'll
Excellent.
give you, according to my own use of it with companies I work with, it'll take you from about less than 50% hiring success rate to over 90% if you use the methodology in that book.
Well, thank you very much, Bahaa. We really appreciate you joining us today and leaning in on some of this great insights on and metrics and tools for determining where people's performance is, how we need to coach and lead them through, and going back to the R&R, the relationship and results components. So thank you again. Everyone, this has been recorded and will be on our Tech Canada website later this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning. So to everyone who's joined us, hope the rest of your day is excellent.